and welcome to the Neutral Zone, where you can hear the latest and greatest hockey news. My name is Mikayla here with Andrew Bluestein and Nick Giglietti. We have an awesome show planned for you today, starting with what's going on in each NHL division.
So let's start by doing the East Division, in my opinion, which is one of the hardest divisions in the league. The Rangers, which is my favorite team, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but I don't think they can make a playoff spot right now. They don't have enough depth at defense. Igor Shesterkin is not playing like himself, and Mika Zibanejad obviously is not playing to himself. I think it's because he had COVID, and obviously he's feeling some side effects of after having COVID. So hopefully they can turn things around, because once they get going, they're a hot team. Another thing for the East Division is Tristan Jarry for the Pittsburgh Penguins, the starting goaltender. He is not a starting goaltender, in my opinion. Right now, he has 7 wins and 6 losses on the season with 1 overtime loss. That's good, but it's not good enough for a starting goaltender. He is 25, so he still has some room to grow. But overall, I think losing Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury was a big loss for them. And hopefully they can either have Jarry playing good again, or maybe try and find a better goaltender at the trade deadline. My next thing for the East Division is, does Jack Eichel need a change of scenery? I think he definitely does right now. He isn't having the best of a season right now, with only 2 goals and 12 assists for 14 points. But in his whole career so far, he has had no help whatsoever. His goaltending has always been horrible. The defense has been mediocre at best, and the forward depth is just not there. So I think Jack Eichel has definitely got to get out of Buffalo and go to a playoff caliber team for sure.
Yeah, those are all great points, Nick. I like your point about bringing up Tristan Jarry, because he was an all-star last year. I know he wasn't. I think he was a substitute because a lot of guys decided not to play. I think Tuukka Rask was one of them. But yeah, he has not played very well this year. It's kind of a strange situation in Pittsburgh too, because they're kind of in no man's land, where they still have that core with them, like Malkin, Crosby, Letang, Getzel, but then they also have a lot of middled out guys, because when a team wins 2 cups in a row, their farm system is going to be depleted. So right. It's an odd situation there in Pittsburgh.
And his defense has gotten worse every single year. I mean, obviously you have Letang, who's an all-star, but I mean, trading for like Mike Matheson is just not good for the goaltending, because he probably one of the worst defensemen on that team, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing too that they had to deal with is the Ray Shero, their GM, decided to just retire in the middle of the season, and they had to bring in Ron Hextall and Brian Burke, who's running hockey operations. Or excuse me, I said Ray Shero. I meant Jim Rutherford. Ray Shero was their old GM. Jim Rutherford is who decided to hang him up, and as you said, Ron Hextall comes in along with Brian Burke. So interesting what's going on over there in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, so I'm going to move on here to the the Western Division rather. Really interesting division. I think it's the most top-heavy division in the league right now. I think Vegas is easily the most complete team. Fleury's on fire, and they don't even have Robin Lehner, who's actually the starting goalie at the beginning of the season, and he was their starter in the playoffs last year primarily. He's been dealing with injury. And then you look at teams like Colorado and St. Louis. Colorado had some COVID problems, but I think they could be just as good as Vegas with that top line with McKinnon, Landeskog, and Rantanen. And then St. Louis, they've been solid defensively this year, but they've had problems scoring goals. Vlad Tarasenko is supposed to come back soon. That should help them for sure. But they're probably going to be one of those teams that's going to look to be adding some scoring at the trade deadline. But the biggest surprise right now in that division is easily the Minnesota Wild. Who saw them doing what they're doing right now? You got to give GM Billy Guerin a lot of credit. Going overseas and getting Kirill Kaprizov, bringing him in. He's had a really good year. Guys like Joel Eriksson Ek and Kevin Fiala both putting the puck in the net, and their back end's really strong and experienced. They have Ryan Suter, Jonas Brodin, Jared Spurgeon, Matt Dumba. I just think ultimately their goaltending's not good enough. Capo Kakinen, he's been solid this year, but he's not too experienced in the league. And Cam Talbot's a guy who has injury problems, and I just don't think that goaltending tandem is ultimately good enough to put them in the same category as the three teams I mentioned before in Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis.
Andrew, do you think Torrey Krug was a big help for the St. Louis team?
I think here's my thing with Torrey Krug. I think he's an outstanding hockey player. He has way more offensive upside than he does defensively. I wouldn't call him a liability defensively, but he does make a lot more mistakes defensively than offensively. Obviously, that St. Louis power play unit's been a little disappointing because you have Mike Hoffman on there too, who's one of the best power play guys in the league. And I think by the end of the season you'll see them improve when you get Tarasenko back. But I mean, your team's not going to get worse by signing Torrey Krug. So I think it was a solid addition for them.
Yeah, definitely. And like the Wild have been really good so far this season. Like usually they're towards the bottom of the league, but they've been doing surprisingly well this season.
Yeah, definitely. And also the LA Kings for a bit were surging. They won 6 games in a row. I just ultimately think they don't have enough depth in that four group of playoffs. I think you're going to see Arizona and Minnesota end up battling it out for that fourth and final spot.
Alrighty, moving on to the Central Division. The Florida Panthers are actually doing really well, keeping a spot in the top half of the division so far. Any thoughts on the Panthers? Will they stay towards the top, or will they eventually fall to the bottom?
My personal opinion, I think they're going to drop a little bit. I think Sergei Bobrovsky is really overrated. I don't think he's a top 10 goalie whatsoever. But I mean, they've got the forward depth that they needed. I think Patrick Hornquist was a great addition to the Panthers team. He plays really well with Jonathan Huberdeau, who's having a breakout season. And then guys like Barkov, obviously he's an all-star, so he knows what to do with the puck. He's also playing with some of the younger guys, so I don't think they'll be at the top, but definitely try and fight for that fourth spot, maybe the third spot.
Yeah, I feel like the Panthers could potentially be playoff contenders this season.
Yeah, I think the Panthers are one of those teams where you don't really know yet. It's kind of a wait and see with them because I mean it's the Florida Panthers. I mean they're not exactly known for winning. They had a couple good years in the early 2000s and late 90s where they went to the Cup, but I mean I personally think that Huberdeau and Barkov are two of the most underrated players in the league, and it's because where they play. Um, those guys have been fantastic this year, and I think guys on their back end, Keith Yandel, who's been there for a couple of years now, this guy never misses a game. He's really durable. And Nick, to your point, I agree. I think Bobrovsky has regressed significantly, but I think he's one of those goalies where if he gets hot, then look out because look what he did against Tampa Bay in the playoffs a couple of years ago. He stole that series for him. So I think the Panthers are just one of those teams where we're just gonna have to wait and see with them.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about the Stars, now they're kind of towards the bottom of the division right now, but I think that they'll be in a higher spot once the season comes to a close.
I think so too. I think not having Tyler Seguin is a key loss for them. He's a star player for that team, but I mean, guys have been stepping up. Joe Pavelski had a horrible year last year, but now he's on fire. I think he has 15 goals this season, something like that. And for his age, that's kind of rare. But I like their defense too. I think Miro Heiskanen's a great defender. Anton Hudobin came out of nowhere really in the playoffs last year. Now he's starting for the Stars, but I think they will move up eventually.
Yeah, and I think the Lightning are going to do well this season also. As the defending Stanley Cup champions, I feel like they could possibly go back-to-back if they are determined enough.
Yeah, it's just scary what the Lightning have been able to do, even without Kucherov, it doesn't even seem like he's going to play this year that'll be waited to be seen. But yeah, the Lightning are it's just scary how good they are. And they also lost Shattenkirk too. He went to Anaheim. They just seem to have came back where they left off last year.
Now with the Red Wings, they're usually towards the bottom of the league. Do you think they'll stay at the bottom of the league this season? I personally think they're not going to do very well, because they usually don't.
No, I think they're going to stay at the bottom as well. They added some nice pieces to the team, like Vladislav Nemestikov, Mark Stahl's like a stay-at-home defenseman. But I mean, they just don't have any goal scorers really besides Larkin and Mantha. So, and their goaltending isn't as strong. I know they brought in Grice, but he's not a decent goalie, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Wings are just one of those teams that are going through a rebuild. I mean, that's what's going to happen when you make the playoffs for 24 straight years. Another thing is, too, with them, I'm surprised that Jeff Blashill, their head coach, is still there. This is his 6th season, and you got to think at some point that they need to make a coaching change because I mean, obviously they don't have the personnel or the players that they once did, but they do have a lot of young talent because they're kind of stocking up their draft picks here. So I think it'll still be a couple years before they're back in the fold.
Yeah, definitely. And my last point about the Central Division is Corey Crawford's retirement. Or was he traded or retired?
He was with New Jersey to start the season and then decided to retire during training camp.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So how will the Blackhawks fare without Corey Crawford?
I mean, I think they've been doing okay. They have a rookie in net right now that's doing pretty well, but Malcolm Subban was supposed to be the starting goaltender. He's decent. He's not the best goalie. He's still pretty young, but I think with their young defensive core and a guy like Duncan Keith, their goaltending can get a lot better for sure.
Yeah, Kevin Lankinen, he's arguably the Calder Trophy winner so far this year in terms of rookies. It's got to be between him and Kaprizov in Minnesota. But Kevin Lankinen has been a pleasant surprise because, as you said, Nick, Subban was supposed to be the starter coming into this season. And, being a Bruins fan, I've experienced the whole Malcolm Subban experience, I guess, and it was not fun. And yeah, but like I said, Kevin Lankinen's he's come in here and has the Blackhawks in a playoff position, so it seems like he's going to be the guy moving forward here.
Yeah, I think the Blackhawks could possibly make the playoffs, but we'll just have to see.
So now moving on to the North Division. I think this division is absolutely stacked with some great teams. It's obviously every team from Canada. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs really look like cup contenders this year. They added TJ Brody from the Flames to help out Morgan Riley because he really needed some help on defense. Austin Matthews is having a career year for sure. Mitch Marner's having a bounce back season, so I really think that the Maple Leafs will be better this season. They probably won't lose to the Bruins this year, obviously in the first round. I know the Canucks aren't having the best of season right now, but they have some great talented guys like Elias Peterson, guys like JT Miller, Quinn Hughes. So I think they're really going to be, maybe they can turn the page and get going. Does Connor McDavid need a change of scenery?
I mean, he probably wants one at this point, but I mean, the Oilers they're sitting in second place right now in that division. It seems like that defense is an option in the Northern Division this year. Has been every time I see them on NHL Network or whatever they're watchable. There's such high scoring games. And it's been really interesting. It kind of seems like it's been musical chairs in that division. You had Montreal at the top to start the season. They've struggled significantly. They just fired Claude Julien. Not exactly the best coaching fit with that roster. That's kind of more of a heavy forechecking roster, and as we know, Claude Julien plays a more defensive style. Connor McDavid is it's just scary how good this guy is at hockey. I mean, he's like Gretzky. It's Gretzky-esque, but he's much faster than Gretzky. They play a different style of hockey in different ways, but and then Austin Matthews for the Leafs. I mean, the only problem I have with the Leafs is their overall team defense. I mean, I think that they're a very strong team offensively. Guys like Marner, Nylander, Tavares, obviously. Jason Spezza's having a year. It seems like he's back in his Ottawa days. But ultimately, I think Frederik Anderson. I don't. When it comes down to crunch time, I don't think he rarely comes through for them. And their back end, it's very good offensively, but there's some holes there defensively. And as I said, I just don't think their overall team defense is going to be strong enough in the playoffs. But they could prove us all wrong. So
Right, and I think going to the Ottawa Senators now, they're obviously in a rebuild, but I think they have one of the best young core in the division right now. You have a guy like Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stutzla, Thomas Chabot. Those guys are just unbelievable. Give them a few more years, and I think that team will be really good.
yeah, and they've shown flashes this year too. So sorry, Mikayla, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, Ottawa hasn't been the best over the past few years, but if they do a little bit more rebuilding, then I feel like they can have a really strong team. And going back to Connor McDavid, I feel like, yeah, he's been carrying the Oilers for a while. Like, I'm sure he would want to change the scenery. If he were to be traded to, like, a really, like, strong cup contending team, like the Lightning or one of them, like, he could have, like, an outstanding career. Well, not that he's not having one right now, but, you know. And the Canucks, like, as you said, like, I think they could have a really strong team. Because don't they have Braden Holtby?
Yeah, they do. He's not actually having the best of a season right now. I think Patrick Demko is doing a lot better.
I hope he's also getting up there in age too.
And then, do you guys think the Pierre-Luc Dubois for Patrick Laine was a good trade for both teams?
The thing is, you never know with John Tortorella because he's just such a wild card. I mean, we saw Laine got benched for a period and a half when he like in his third game there.
Right.
So, I mean, I think Pierre-Luc Dubois, both these guys are really young. Pierre-Luc Dubois is only 24. I believe Laine is the same age or a year older. But Laine is a gifted goal scorer. He's had some really strong games with Columbus so far. Dubois has looked good with Winnipeg. I think it was a very fair deal. The only thing is, I will say, I think that Winnipeg gave up a little too much because Roslovic, who they gave up in that deal, also he's been playing really well for Columbus.
Yeah, the hometown kid.
Yep, he's from Columbus, Ohio. So, I mean, again, I think it was a fair deal. I think I'd say that Columbus might have got a little bit more out of it than Winnipeg, though.
Yeah, I think both players, Dubois and Laine, are very talented and could both make a good impact for their teams.
I was just surprised when I saw this trade because you guys remember Patrick Laine went number 2 overall, and Pierre-Luc Dubois went 3rd overall. So they just literally just flip-flopped team. So I think overall it's a good trade for both teams. Dubois is more of a two-way kind of players. As you said, Andrew, like Line A is more of a sniper. You had like Roslovic, who's having a really good season in Columbus. So I think both teams won, in my opinion.
All right. Well, this has been the Neutral Zone. I'm Andrew Bluestein, along with Mikayla Krupsy and Nick Gigoletti. We'll see you next time on the next installment of the Neutral Zone.